Hi everyone, my name is Mike Ward. Welcome to the channel. It's my intention in this series of videos to show you how to reduce your blood sugar to normal levels. And I speak from experience there because I once had a blood sugar of 293 milligrams per decilitre, and now it's in the normal range of 80 to 126 milligrams per decilitre. And in case you're using millimoles where you live, that's equivalent to a range of 16.3 millimoles per litre for the highest range, which is equal to the 293, and the normal range in millimoles per litre is 4.4 to 7.4. Now I've done this for the last 14 years, and the basic way to do this is to reduce the levels of stored sugar in your body. And sugar is obviously stored as compounds that can be converted back to sugar, and the reason the body does that is just because the body is mainly set up to avoid running out of sugar. It has no idea to cope with our civilization and the fact that there's too much food around all the time. It's basically set up to cope with a body that might get one meal every 3 days or something like that, and then feast and then not have any more food for say 7 days. And that's why we have a problem, because there's food everywhere, and eating 3 meals a day is unnatural for most humans if you go back through history for the last 10,000 years. So basically what happens is, as you start to work through this, what you'll do, you'll get to the stage where your storage areas are drained enough so that any excess carbs and sugar go straight to storage rather than stay in the bloodstream. Right now, most of you are in a situation where your storage areas are absolutely full, so any excess sugar you eat just sticks around in the bloodstream. And you may say, well, there's nothing I can do about that, but that's not the case. There's a lot of things you can do about it. You saw my blood sugar when I initially found out I had high blood sugar, and it was 293. That's right off the charts, and people don't come back from that kind of number, but I did. And this happened when I was 48 years old. Basically what I did, I started having nosebleeds, so I went to the doctor, and he did a series of blood tests to find out what was wrong. And one of the things that came out from the blood tests was the very high blood sugar level. And one of the things I'd been doing that summer, I'd worked every single Saturday for months because we were putting a new computer system in, and that had a lot to do with it. I didn't really have time to do any exercise. I was working 6 days solid, and on the Saturday I worked pretty much a full day. I'd get there about 8 AM and work till about 4 o'clock, 4:30. So it was pretty much a full solid day, and didn't leave me a lot of time for any exercise or much else. And also in that situation, you get tired and you don't eat properly. You tend to eat a lot of food that you buy rather than making it yourself. And I was in a situation with blood sugar that high where it could have gone two ways. I could have spent the last 14 years on drugs keeping my blood sugar down, or I could have spent the last 14 years keeping my blood sugar levels low naturally. Now, my opinion is that if I'd spent 14 years on drugs, I wouldn't be anything like as healthy as I am. And that's just my opinion. You may be on drugs and may be perfectly happy, but I suspect if you're looking at this, you're looking to actually get off any blood sugar drugs you're on, or you don't want to go on them in the first place. And I'm happy to tell you that's perfectly possible. And I've literally done it for 14 years. And just to fill you in on a few details, when it happened, my stepdaughter was a type 1 diabetic, so I did have some experience of diabetes and blood sugar numbers, and I'd seen her in different situations with various high blood sugars and things. So what I did, obviously type 1 is a lot different than type 2. So I went out and spent $300 on books. Now, the first thing I did was go to Barnes & Noble, but they didn't really have a lot. So I ended up going to Amazon, and basically I had books coming in, for a week or two. I just ordered everything I thought might be relevant. Anything that looked good, I ordered, because I really wanted to. And this is something I do. I really dig into things in great detail. So all I did in my spare time was read books on diabetes and basically how to get rid of it. They had given me a diet, but I know now that was useless, because one of the main things on the diet was eating porridge every day, and that is actually loaded with carbs and is about the worst thing you can do if you want to lower your blood sugar. and many of you may have been advised the same thing. So basically what I did, I read through all these books. I also found various studies as well, excuse me, and one of the studies I found was about glucose transporter 4, and we'll get into that in more detail later, but I actually found out how to make glucose transporter 4 more efficient, which means it will pull more blood sugar out of your system. And some of those studies were 90 pages long. In fact, the one where I found out this was actually 90 pages long, and I found it after about 60 pages. So I literally went through things in real detail, and bear in mind there are a lot of data analysis studies and things that I had to find out how to read as well. But it was well worth it because, as I say, I've spent the last 14 years with normal blood sugar. And basically I spent about 2 months reading about type 2 diabetes, and then after the 2 months was over I started to put what I had learned into effect, and literally 3 months later I'd normalised my blood sugar. And one of the things that I found out about while I was reading these books, most of the books would say things like your pancreas is tired or you're old, and number one, which sounded a bit unrealistic, how can a 12-year-old have an old pancreas or a tired pancreas, but 12-year-olds get type 2 diabetes? And in one book, and it was only one book, it said that when you first get type 2 diabetes, your pancreas is putting out 3 times as much insulin as someone without type 2 diabetes. And I've put this in bold print because this is really important. We're almost taught to think that the pancreas is the main cause of type 2 diabetes, but if it puts out 3 times as much insulin as somebody without type 2 diabetes, then basically what your pancreas is doing is desperately trying to sort things out. And as soon as I read that, I knew I had control. I just had to find out how to get control. Because if there's nothing wrong with the pancreas and it was trying to put the situation right, then it had to be somewhere else in the body, or a combination of things. And as I found out, it was a combination of things. And you know, it was a really hard basic problem with research, and in the end I had to go out and think, what exactly is the blood sugar system trying to do here? And when I'd figured that out, what it was really meant to do, and not what we think it's meant to do, then at that point I knew I could sort things out. And basically I knew at that point I could beat type 2 diabetes, but I still had these enormous blood sugar numbers. It wasn't 293 anymore, but it was high. And one thing I will say here, I was kind of in denial about it, and I didn't want to take my blood sugar knowing that it was going to be very high. So for the first month I didn't really take very many readings, if any. And I would say if you're new to this, just take the readings, because the way you get control is just to take readings every day, and then you see patterns in the numbers after a while. And I'll go through the patterns in another video. But an example, my morning blood sugar on a Monday was always higher than the other 4 days of the week. And I noticed that after a few weeks and started to think about it. And I realised it was because we ate out a lot over the weekends at that particular time. And so I changed what I was eating. I switched to things like barbecue with green salads and stuff like that, instead of barbecue with potatoes and things like that. So these are the kind of things I'll go through. What I'll go through in the series of videos is different ways to normalise your blood sugar. And the methods I developed are easy to do, so don't start to think this is going to be hard. You know, you probably have to go in a little hard to start with because you've got a blood sugar number you want to get down. But once you've got it down, it will tend to stay down unless you do something stupid. But if you eat reasonably, exercise reasonably, then most of the time, then you can do what you like, say on a Sunday or 1 day a week. If you do what you like 7 days a week, then obviously you don't have any chance of getting things back to normal. But if you follow what I suggest, and most of it is going to be things like normal food that you cook yourself, there's no strange tablets or anything else like this. It's just basically going to be somewhere where I say, if you do this, this and this, then this will happen. And it really is that easy. You know, you won't be sweating like you are on some of the other diets where you say, I'm never going to manage this. And if you kind of break down and don't do what you normally do one day, then you just get back on the horse and ride again the next day and do what you should be doing. So none of it is really hard, and it can be done in 3 months, or you can do it a bit slower and take 4 or 5 months, but you will get your blood sugar number down. Occasionally mine will go up if I'm not paying attention properly, and it's always easy to get it back down again. So I'm just saying this to give you confidence, and these lectures or videos will be basically videos looking at the good side of things. I'm not a big believer in fear-based training. I don't think that does anybody any good. All it does is paralyze people. So this is, as I say, just going to be a series of videos that say if you do this, this and this, then this will happen and your blood sugar will go down. It doesn't happen overnight, so what you'll do, you'll start putting things into process, and then maybe you won't see anything at all for a week or two, but it's a cumulative process. And also, once you've gone down the cumulative road, to get back to a high blood sugar, you'll have to go back the opposite way up the cumulative road. So one bad day when you've normalized your blood sugar isn't really going to have much effect, but 3 or 4 bad days might. So, and we'll get into that as I go through this. And I do have a course on Udemy called How to Attack Type 2 Diabetes Like a Viking. So I'll give you a link to that below the video. And basically what I want to do is go through some of the methods here for the rest of this video. And as I said, they're easy to do, and what you do, you basically attack type 2 diabetes from multiple sides like a Viking. And as another analogy, and I know Russia is not very popular at the time, around the West anyway, at the time I'm making this video, but the Russian army under the Tsars was a totally different army than it is now, and they basically were incredible at conquering countries. They just went across Asia like a swathe. In one 10-year period, they conquered an area as big as Western Europe, just literally in 10 years. And the Russian army would typically attack from 5 sides at once, and that's quite a strong attack and quite a difficult attack to repel, because if you're being attacked from 5 sides, sooner or later one of those sides will find a break and get through. And that literally happened with the Russians time after time after time. There was even a battle at Tepe in Turkmenistan, where the fort commander had been to Moscow and studied advanced fortifications, because he knew the Russians would attack sooner or later. And then he went back to Turkmenistan and fortified his fort, and he did make it very, very secure, but the Russians got through that as well and destroyed the fort. And as I said, you can get an in-depth look at this by going to my Udemy video course, and I'll put the link below. And there are 3 things you can do. This is just to get you started. Basically, walk 2 miles a day, and if you never walk at all, don't just go out and walk 2 miles. You have to build up into exercise slowly. And I literally will do 2 miles a night pretty much most of the year. I mean, I live in Florida, so it can get very hot in the summer. There was 1 year, 2 years ago, when I only missed doing the full 2 miles for 4 nights, but this last year, which was 2022, was really hot, and it was actually much more difficult. But you can do, in that situation, 2 15-minute walks. You can go to the mall, which I actually ended up having to do towards the end of the year because it was just basically too hot. But wherever you live, at least in America, there's usually a mall, maybe 15-20 minutes away. If you're right out in the country, then that's not going to be the case. But maybe there's a Walmart near you and you can walk around the Walmart or a Costco. There are usually various places you can walk and get exercise. And like I said, I do basically 2 miles a night after work, and that gives you, what that does is use up some of the blood sugar that's in your bloodstream. And basically what you're trying to do, you're trying to reduce inputs and increase outputs. So doing a 2 mile walk every night, if you are now watching TV every night, is going to make a big difference. And you won't see the difference straight away because there's an effect on the muscles in your legs, which are big muscles. So over time they'll get stronger, they'll pull more blood sugar out of your bloodstream, and it really gets to be a cumulative effect. And the same thing, at the same point of view, you can look at your diet, and if you can keep each meal down to 13 carbs, and that's probably quite hard, and again, you can't just do that or you'll feel terrible for after a day or two of doing that. You have to move into that slowly, maybe try one meal at a time, and I'll have meal suggestions for you later on, and I'll tell you what I do in later videos. But basically, if you do those two things, it will start to have an effect on your blood sugar, and like I said, it won't be immediate, but the fact that you started it and you're doing it, aim to do it 5 or 6 days a week at least, and the fact that you started it and you're doing it will have some effect right now to put your blood sugar down. Now, when I first checked my blood sugar, I had my stepdaughter check it when I started having the nosebleeds, and it was 255. So I thought, okay, I'll walk this off. So I went out for a 2.5 mile walk. I got back, I expected it to be down a lot, but it was down 10 points. So there's a prime example of a non-cumulative effect. Okay, I had a bit of an effect on blood sugar, but I didn't have a lot of an effect. But if you do that every day, it starts to build up. And so effectively you've knocked 50 points off your blood sugar by the end of the week. And I'm not saying that is 50 points that actually appears as 50 points, but it's having a cumulative effect. And if you reduce the amount of carbs you're eating as well, which is basically what pushes your blood sugar up, then you're attacking from two sides there. And the other side you attack from is making your muscles more efficient with glucose transporter 4, which is the main glucose transporter that pulls sugar out of your blood. And there's a lot of things to get to here, so I'm going to end the video here and just leave you with an optimistic message. This really is not that hard. I've been doing it for 14 years. My blood sugar can go up occasionally, but if it does, it's very easy to get it back down again. So and side effects of doing all this: lower blood sugar will be better for you. You will feel better if you're walking 2 miles every day. You'll feel better if you're eating better and not filling yourself with sugar and carbs all day. One thing I get to, when I do this is your body tends to run on sugar it makes itself because it breaks down fat. And at some time in the day, if you're only eating 13 carbs a meal, you'll run out of blood sugar effectively. I'm not saying that it'll go dangerously low or anything, but you'll get to the stage where your body has to put some sugar into your bloodstream. And if you do that, you're in a situation where you have exactly the right amount of sugar in your bloodstream. So you don't get ups and downs. And it's amazing how different it feels because you have just the right amount of energy. So you're calm because you don't have a load of sugar swimming around in your bloodstream, and you can work a lot better. It really makes a difference at work when you're in that situation where you've got the balance in your bloodstream as far as carbs go, and you're supplying some carbs later in the day when you effectively run out of the sugar that was pushed into your bloodstream in the morning. Okay, so I'll leave you with that message, and if you want to comment below. Tell me the issues you're seeing. Tell me what you'd like to see in videos, and check out my course. You can watch the first 2 videos for free, so go and have a look at it and see what I have to say there. There's more in the course than there'll be in the YouTube videos, but my aim is just to help people. That's what I get a real kick out of. If I can help somebody have a better life, then that's really what we're all here to do while we're on Earth. So that's very important to me. My aim is to get as many people off high blood sugar as I can, and I know I can probably get about 60 to 70% of the people that do my course out of the high blood sugar situation. So with that being said, I hope you all have a good day or a good evening, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.